Have you ever noticed how some lives seem doomed long before the end arrives? Not because of destiny, but because pain keeps being ignored until it learns how to scream. This isn't just a story about crime, love, or revenge. It's about what happens when anger grows faster than hope and silence lasts longer than compassion. What you're about to hear is the journey of a boy who tried to escape his past, only to discover that the past doesn't run out of breath as easily as we do. Along the way, there are moments of illusion, moments of redemption, and moments where one single decision quietly destroys everything. There will be love that almost saves him, power that poisons him, and a public ending that turns suffering into spectacle. So stay with me until the end, because this story isn't just about him, it's about what we all choose to ignore. And if stories like this make you feel something real, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps keep these stories alive. Back then, people in that small rural town in West Texas used to say the boy had no fear at all. Not the healthy kind of bravery, but that quiet, dangerous absence of fear that makes adults uneasy. They whispered his name with caution, as if words themselves could provoke trouble. Life on the farm was slow, repetitive, almost suffocating, and he felt it in his bones every morning. While other kids learned patience, he learned resentment, watching dust settle over broken dreams. He didn't hate the place itself. He hated what it promised and never delivered. Even as a child, something inside him was already itching tea. Oh, run. Everything cracked the night his father never came home, a single gunshot ending a life mid-sentence. Some said it was an accident involving a soldier near the border. Others called it fate doing its thing. For the boy, it didn't matter. Loss doesn't care about explanations. That moment planted anger, so deep it grew faster than reason ever could. From then on, the world stopped feeling fair, and authority stopped feeling trustworthy. He learned early that pain doesn't ask permission before settling in. And once it does, it starts whispering ideas you need, are asked for. School became less about learning and more about survival, a daily arena of silent battles. Teachers noticed he was sharp, too sharp sometimes, the kind of intelligence that scares systems. He didn't respect rules, but he studied people, how they lied, feared, and pretended. Other kids followed instructions. He questioned motives, even when it got him punished. There was always a sense he didn't belong, like he was born into the wrong script. While others planned futures, he planned exits. And deep down, he already knew staying in. Ink disappearing. Sundays were supposed to bring peace, but even church felt like borrowed air. He'd sit there, eyes wandering, watching old women drop coins into wooden boxes. Not out of faith, out of habit, maybe guilt, maybe hope. He didn't feel holy, didn't feel forgiven, didn't feel seen. So sometimes he stole, not for money, but to test how invisible he really was. And every time he got away with it, something dark felt justified. Belief to him started sounding like a store. Why meant for someone else? What he truly wanted was distance, miles, highways, oceans he'd only seen on TV. Late at night, he'd imagined cities with lights that never slept, places where names didn't matter. He saved whatever he could, choosing solitude over false comfort. People mistook that choice for arrogance, but it was survival instinct in disguise. When you feel trapped long enough, loneliness starts looking like freedom. He didn't know where he was going yet, only where he couldn't stay. And sometimes, hats enough to move your feet. By his early teens, trouble followed him like a shadow that learned his rhythm. Petty crimes, reckless choices, moments that felt powerful and empty at the same time. Authority responded the only way it knew how, with punishment instead of understanding. A reform school outside El Paso became his new address before he fully understood why. Inside those walls, anger stopped simmering and started boiling. Violence teaches fast, and it rarely teaches the right lessons. He walked out older, harder, and far more dangerous than before. What he couldn't explain was how the world judged him before hearing his side. Class, skin, background. Labels arrived quicker than empathy ever did. He searched for answers in fights, in silence, in the idea of becoming someone feared. Eventually, exhaustion replaced confusion, and a decision took shape. If meaning wouldn't come to him, he'd chase it somewhere else. A one-way ticket out of Texas felt like a rebirth waiting to happen. And that road, once taken, would lead him straight into the next chapter of his life. The bus ride out of Texas felt unreal, like leaving a burning house without looking back. Miles stretched endlessly, and with each one, his past grew quieter but heavier. He landed in New Orleans, hungry, tired, and running on borrowed hope. A cheap coffee, a cracked table, and a stranger changed everything. The man was older, worn down, eyes full of roads already traveled. They spoke like two souls recognizing the same kind of hunger. And sometimes, fate wears the face of coincidence. The stranger talked about Washington, D.C., like it was a second chance wrapped in lights. Said there was work, dignity, and a future waiting for anyone brave enough. He had a ticket he couldn't use, a daughter he needed to see. Life had cornered him, and generosity became his way out. "Take it," he said like it was nothing. The boy hesitated, not out of fear, but disbelief, and then he accepted, sealing a future he didn't understand yet. The bus rolled into the capital under holiday lights and cold air. He stepped out feeling small, invisible, overwhelmed by concrete and possibility. The city didn't care who he was or where he came from, and for the first time, that felt like mercy. He stared at buildings that looked like promises carved in stone. In that moment, hope felt dangerous but irresistible. He told himself this was where everything would finally make sense. He found work in Silver Spring, cutting wood, learning the rhythm of honest labor. His hands bled, his back ached, but the paycheck felt like dignity. Every dollar carried the illusion of stability. On weekends, he wandered through clubs and cheap bars, tasting freedom. He met people with stories just as broken as his own. Among them, a man from La Paz, full of schemes and ambition. And ambition, when mixed with desperation, never ends clean. Money never stretched far enough. News on TV talked about help that never arrived. Promises sounded polished, empty, distant. He got tired of waiting for systems to work. Survival demanded action, not patience. So he listened to new ideas, dangerous ideas. And slowly, step by step, the road began to bend again. What started as hope began to feel like a test. Could a man outrun his past? Or would it always catch up? The city watched him quietly, indifferent to his struggle. He thought he was building a future. He didn't see the trap forming beneath his feet. Every choice felt logical in the moment, and the next one would change everything even more. At first, the new life felt like a miracle that finally decided to answer him. Money started coming in faster than it ever had before. People who once ignored him now knew his name, respected his presence. Power is seductive when you spent your whole life powerless. He told himself it was temporary, just a way to breathe. But the line between survival and hunger is thin. And hunger doesn't like to stop. Word spread fast through Northern Virginia. Good product, fair price, no middlemen, no mercy. He cleaned the streets the way only someone with nothing to lose can. Enemies disappeared, rivals backed off, and silence followed him. For the first time, fear worked in his favor. And that kind of control feels like justice to a wounded soul. He mistook dominance for healing. Nights grew louder, heavier, filled with faces and empty laughs. Rock shows, neon lights, people chasing freedom the wrong way. He told himself he was liberated, but something felt off. Every celebration ended the same, alone, restless, unsatisfied. Success didn't erase the past. It only gave a better stage. The mirror reflected someone sharper, colder, and he wasn't sure when that change happened. One mistake is all it takes when the stakes get high. A bad night, a wrong move, a betrayal hiding in plain sight. Sirens replace music. Fists replace words. He learned quickly that prisons don't rehabilitate, they strip. Humiliation, violence, and fear became daily lessons. His body survived, but something else broke quietly. Hatred stopped being an emotion and became fuel. When he walked back into the city, he was no longer reckless. He was calculated, disciplined, and terrifyingly focused. Police, rivals, rich kids playing dangerous games. None of them scared him. Fear had already taken everything once. What more could it steal? He moved like a man already condemned. And condemned men don't hesitate. That's when love found him, Unfair, unexpected, dangerous. She was light where his world had gone dark. Her name echoed in his mind like a prayer he never learned. For the first time, regret felt heavier than rage. He imagined a future that didn't involve blood. Dreams of marriage, work, a child, redemption. Hope returned, fragile and trembling. He tried to walk away, to become ordinary again, back to honest work, back to silence, back to promises. But the past doesn't release you just because you ask nicely. Temptation knocked wearing expensive shoes and a fake smile. He refused, knowing refusal has consequences. And as the door closed, fate leaned in closer, because peace always comes with a test. He really believed love could rewrite a man's ending, not erase the past, but soften it enough to breathe again. With her, mornings felt lighter, nights less violent. He spoke about marriage like it was a shield against destiny. Honest work returned calloused hands, quiet routines. For a brief moment, peace stopped feeling like a fantasy. And that's usually when life prepares a knife. Then temptation came wearing power and money. A man from the upper side of Georgetown, polished smile, cold eyes. The offer wasn't loud. It was calculated, almost polite. Dirty work. Big payoff, no fingerprints, no consequences. He said no without blinking, because some lines still mattered. He wasn't proud, just tired of becoming worse. The threat came later, disguised as a warning. You just lost your life, brother. The words didn't shout. They sank. Some sentences don't echo in your ears. They echo in your chest. He laughed it off at first, like men do when they're scared. But fear has patience, and it waits. The city kept moving, indifferent to the prophecy. And prophecy never asked permission. Alcohol filled the space where hope used to live. One night turned into several. Clarity drowned slowly. That's when he found out someone else had taken his job. Replacement always hurts more than rejection. It wasn't about money. It was about being erased. He reached for old contacts, old habits, old shortcuts. Desperation reopened doors he'd sworn to lock forever. That's when he heard the name whispered again. A man with influence, reputation, hunger for chaos. The kind of person who survives by destroying others. He didn't look for trouble. Trouble found him. Territory, pride, control, ancient reasons for modern violence. The city felt smaller, tighter, hostile. And love, the one thing anchoring him, began slipping away. Days passed without going home. Silence replaced routine. Absence replaced trust. When longing finally dragged him back, reality hit harder. She was gone, not missing, chosen away. Married to the very man who hunted him. A child on the way sealed the betrayal. Some heartbreaks don't break you. They ignite you. Rage returned, louder than ever before. Love flipped into hatred without changing faces. He didn't cry, didn't scream, didn't beg. He challenged destiny directly, like a man with nothing left. A public duel, time, place, witnesses. If life had become a spectacle, he'd perform. And the city was already gathering to watch. The city didn't just hear about the duel, it fed on it. News cameras arrived before conscience did, microphones thirsty for blood. They turned pain into headlines, revenge into entertainment. What should have been private became a public ceremony of destruction. People didn't come to stop it. They came to watch. When suffering becomes spectacle, empathy dies quietly, and the crowd gathered like it always does, pretending innocence. He saw his life reduced to captions and commentary. Strangers debated his fate, like it was a game. Some called him a criminal, others a victim. Most just wanted drama. He stood there, breathing heavy, feeling the weight of every wrong turn. Memories rushed in, childhood dust, his father's body, the first punch thrown. The past didn't pass before his eyes. It crashed into him, and for the first time, he felt tired of fighting. The sun hung low, blinding, merciless. Sweat mixed with blood before the first shot even landed. A coward fired from behind, smiling as the bullet found its mark. Pain exploded through his chest, sharp and final. The crowd gasped, then leaned in closer. Some clapped, some recorded. No one helped. That's how you know the world has changed. As he fell, he noticed details that shouldn't matter. Flags waving, a kid holding ice cream, lenses zooming in. Life continued in fragments while his drained away. He tasted iron, felt warm spilling where it shouldn't. Death didn't feel dramatic. It felt slow and unfair. And that's when he understood the joke. If suffering had become a show, he was already on stage. Then he saw her, not as a memory, but as flesh in consequence. She stood there holding the weapon, hands shaking, eyes drowning in regret. The same gun that had traveled borders now pointed destiny home. He didn't hate her in that moment. He pitted them all. Love, betrayal, forgiveness. None of it clean, none of it simple. Just human wreckage stacked too high. He forced himself up, blood-soaked, trembling but conscious. Honor mattered now more than survival. He spoke, voice breaking, demanding eye contact. No shots from behind. No hiding. No lies. If this was the end, it would be honest. And honesty, even brutal, feels like freedom. The trigger pulled, and everything burned. When the echoes faded, silence finally arrived. 2 bodies on the ground, dreams unfinished, choices completed. Regret came too late, like it always does. The crowd dispersed, already looking for the next story. Some called him a saint. Others denied what they'd seen. Truth doesn't need consensus. It just exists, and is dead, bleeding into the concrete. Death didn't arrive with peace. It arrived with confusion. Sirens screamed too late, as if urgency could rewind time. Blood soaked the ground where people had stood moments before, cheering. Cameras kept rolling, hungry for the last angle, the last breath. No one knew where to look once the noise stopped. There's something terrifying about silence after chaos. It forces everyone to face what they allowed. Bodies don't fall the way movies show. They collapse heavy, unfinished, awkward. Dreams don't shatter loudly. They leak out slowly. His eyes stared upward, not searching heaven, just empty. She lay nearby, frozen in regret, too late to matter. Love didn't save them. Hate didn't either. Both simply ran out of time. People argued immediately. Some said he deserved it. Others swore he was misunderstood. Opinions replaced facts, like they always do. It was easier to label him than to understand him. Criminal, victim, saint, monster. Each word chosen for comfort, not truth. Truth is heavier than judgment. The city cleaned the street by morning. Water washed away blood, as if guilt could dissolve that easily. Stores reopened. Traffic resumed. Life pretended nothing happened. Only echoes remained, whispers, rumors, fragments of footage. Tragedy fades faster when it's inconvenient. Pain becomes yesterday's news. And the world moves on without asking permission. Some claimed he died with honor, that he stood tall when it mattered most. Others refused to believe what they saw on screen. Power doesn't like stories it can't control. So doubt was planted where certainty lived. History isn't written by the dead. It's edited by the comfortable. What no one talked about was the boy he once was, the child who watched his father die, the teenager swallowed by anger and labels, the man who tried, briefly, to be better. Redemption doesn't erase damage. It reveals it. And sometimes the attempt costs everything, especially when the world is watching. Some nights, people still talk about that afternoon. They remember where they stood, what they felt. They argue about blame, about justice, about fate. But no one asks the most important question. What happens when a society mistakes pain for entertainment? When suffering becomes content? That answer lingers, unresolved, uncomfortable, alive. In the days that followed, everyone suddenly had an opinion. Barbershops, living rooms, late-night conversations. His name kept resurfacing. Some spoke with reverence, others with disgust, most with certainty they didn't earn. It's easier to judge a finished story than understand one still bleeding. People prefer clean narratives, heroes or villains, nothing in between. But real lives don't follow scripts. They unravel. The footage replayed endlessly. Slow motion, freeze frames, commentary layered over pain. Every replay stripped more humanity from a moment. Viewers argued about what they would have done, as if morality is simple when you're not the one cornered. Distance gives people confidence they'd never survive up close. Empathy rarely survives convenience. Authorities questioned everything except themselves. They debated crime rates, morality, order. No one mentioned neglect, inequality, silence. Systems don't like mirrors. They prefer scapegoats. Blame feels productive when it points away from power. So they buried context and highlighted consequence. That's how responsibility disappears. In some neighborhoods, he became a symbol, not a saint, not a role model, a warning, a reminder of what happens when anger outgrows hope. Parents told his story to scare their children. But fear never teaches what compassion could have prevented. Lessons delivered too late are just tragedies retold. And tragedies don't raise anyone. What haunted people most wasn't how he died. It was how familiar his path felt. Too many recognized pieces of him in themselves. The rage, the hunger, the exhaustion, the quiet wish to be seen before it's too late. That recognition scared them more than the violence. So they turned away. Time passed, as it always does. New scandals replaced old ones. New faces carried the same unresolved pain. His name faded, but the conditions didn't. That's the cruelest part of legacy. The story ends, but the cycle continues. And someone else steps into the same role. Yet sometimes, late at night, people still wonder, what if someone had listened sooner? What if love had arrived earlier? What if redemption wasn't treated like weakness? Questions don't change the past, but they haunt the present, and they quietly prepare the future. When everything was finally over, what remained wasn't peace. It was a strange, uncomfortable quiet, the kind that forces reflection. No more sirens, no more cameras, no more shouting opinions. Just absence, heavy, undeniable absence. The kind that sits next to you at night and refuses to speak. Because some stories don't end. They echo. And echoes don't ask if you're ready to listen. People like to believe his life was about violence. That labeling it that way keeps them safe from seeing themselves in it. But beneath the blood and the headlines was something far more familiar. A boy who never learned how to grieve. A man who confused strength with survival. A heart that wanted meaning more than power. And a world that answered too late, if at all. If you strip the story down to its bones, it becomes uncomfortably simple. Pain unanswered grows teeth. Anger ignored learns how to speak louder. Love delayed arrives, carrying consequences instead of salvation. And when redemption finally shows up, it often finds the door already burning. That's not tragedy. That's pattern. And patterns repeat when no one interrupts them. Somewhere, right now, another kid is watching a screen late at night, dreaming of escape, mistaking loneliness for freedom, learning, quietly, that rage gets attention faster than vulnerability. No one will call him dangerous yet. Not until it's useful. Not until it's profitable. Not until it's irreversible. That's the part no one wants to face. These stories aren't rare. They're common, predictable, preventable. We just prefer them dramatic instead of honest. It's easier to mourn a spectacle than to fix a system. Easier to point at the ending than to examine the beginning. And far easier to forget once the screen goes dark. Maybe that's why his story still hurts. Not because of how it ended, but because of how long it took to notice. Because so many moments could have gone differently. Because at several points, a single hand, a single word, a single pause might have changed everything. And realizing that doesn't make us feel inspired. It makes us responsible. And responsibility is heavier than grief. So when the music fades and the story settles in your chest, don't ask whether he was right or wrong. Ask what kind of world produces this path so often. Ask what silence you've accepted as normal. Ask who around you is quietly unraveling. Because stories like this don't ask for pity. They ask for awareness. When the story ends, what lingers isn't the violence, it's the questions. Questions that don't have easy answers and weren't meant to. How many moments were missed before everything collapsed? How many warnings were ignored because they were inconvenient? And how many lives around us are quietly walking the same path, unseen, unheard, mislabeled? This wasn't just a story about one man's choices. It was about the spaces between those choices, the silences, the neglect, the moments where someone could have listened and didn't. Maybe that's why it hurts in a familiar way, because parts of this story don't belong only to him. They belong to cities, systems, families, maybe even to memories you carry yourself. Now I want to hear from you. What part of this story stayed with you the most? Do you believe his fate was inevitable, or could one moment of compassion have changed everything? And if you could turn any song into a story like this, which one would you choose next? Leave your thoughts in the comments. I read them all. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Because here, music isn't just something you hear. It's something you feel, live, and never forget.